This is the Under Segovia Show.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping that this is transmitting just right. And for those of you on the West Coast, it's probably still too early. I'm going to be having a unique coffee time moment with y'all. So if you're able to join me live, great. Otherwise, you're going to catch it on the replay. And I need to be very careful here where it's just going to mess up my camera. I'm going to have a guest on because I put up the poll on purpose. For those of you that participated, thank you. And the poll I'm talking about is with respects to if you feel the threats of the CCP, which is the Chinese Communist Party, are they concerning to you or are they not? And the poll, if you saw the poll, you can still see the results here on my Instagram stories. If you're seeing this around the time I go live, if you're seeing it, the concern is that most people do have a concern. But when you see the results, though, the results are people are not living in Taiwan. And those that are living in Taiwan, friends and family that I have over there, most of them feel it's exaggerated. It's no big deal. This is China just being China. The same old talking points. They don't feel that threat. So let me see. I'm going to try to get my guest on here.
Hey, Brendon, can you hear me?
Andres, yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, for a lot of people on my side are going to tune in a little later because they're asleep. And where you are, you're probably going to sleep soon too, right? Because it's almost midnight in Taiwan.
Yeah, it's it's almost midnight, and fingers crossed I will be asleep in a minimal amount of time. But
Gotcha.
Not during this interview.
Yeah, I try to do it a little earlier. I usually work on my show between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. So that's how okay. So if I'm doing a late shift, I can make this happen in the morning. So I'm glad we're able to work around the crazy time schedules to make this happen.
I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Well, dude, I reached out to you because live from Taiwan. Yeah. Well, dude, I reached out to you because you saw the poll that I put out there. I put, are the threats of the CCP against Taiwan concerning or exaggerated? And for the most part, most of everybody on my account, they saw the result and thought, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Until I explained to them that those that are saying exaggerated are people in Taiwan living in Taiwan, and everybody that said that they were concerned are living outside of it. And I thought about you because when you were doing the wide angle, because right now you're doing a more health focused show, but when you were focused on the wide angle, you covered a lot of this, and it was concerning then, and it's more concerning now. But for some reason, the Taiwanese are not really feeling that. And since you're in Taiwan, and can you come across people on the everyday? Is there anybody preparing for the end of the world over there?
I think my impression of the general culture here is that it's a society where people are very focused on their day-to-day lives, on their work, and it's a very work-driven, study-driven culture. And I think there's also a divide in the perception of this threat, and also a divide in the kind of relationship that Taiwanese people want to have with China, which is unfortunately governed at the moment by the Chinese Communist Party. So I can see where there would be people who perceive that there isn't a great threat from China, and perhaps if other countries weren't involved, if other countries weren't signaling that they would be involved, like the US, then there really wouldn't be much of a threat facing Taiwan. Whereas there's other Taiwanese people who perceive a significant threat. I mean, I just, from my own experience, I was out to dinner last year while I was visiting Taiwan, and we were with a family, and the two children there asked their parents, if China invades, if the CCP invades, can we go and stay with these guys in America? So I think it's there, and it's quite prevalent, this threat. But you've got to remember that it's also been hanging over the head of the Taiwanese for 70 odd years. This threat of potential CCP invasion, albeit it's escalated significantly at this point in time.
With my in-laws, when they were here recently, we were every single year that I visited Taiwan, and then they came over here, I would have these conversations about the what if. Do you have a safety net planned in case the CCP does make their move? Because all their kids are over here now. In other words, the future is the United States for them, but to them they can't visualize leaving Taiwan. So I don't know if it's the fear of having to move from Taiwan that puts them in denial, or if they're just like, we don't perceive that threat. Like, they're always talking. And even some of the younger generation that I've spoken with up until recently, they just brushed it off like it's nothing. But last week, I was able to gather up with several guys for a friend's party, and all of them are Taiwanese. And I just brought it up because, like, hey guys, I wanted to do an episode for my show about this, for those that know. And when I asked, for the first time, I got much more varied questions. I mean, much more varied answers, where some of them were finally expressing concerns. I've never seen them so invested in an upcoming election because they feel the fate of Taiwan hangs on the balance. And I'm like, well, it's about time you guys are paying attention. But a part of me feels that but your family over there isn't. And I guess that led to the question that my wife and I had an exchange recently, which is, well, even if Taiwan was concerned about this, well, what can they do? Like, well, readiness is for one thing. It's a lot of it's mental, and I just feel that there's a dependence on Taiwan that the United States is going to go out to save them. And I'm like, well, don't depend on us, especially right now. But that's just been the general sentiment for me. I haven't been to Taiwan in several years, so I, based on what you just highlighted versus what I've experienced, I think that there is more a change. But with that poll that I just put up, not much has changed. A lot of my friends and family have been posting there and just saying, "No, it's exaggerated." Like, you guys still think that? I sometimes wonder if the media in Taiwan might be influenced by the CCP. You're in media. Do you feel a little bit of that? Have you seen that?
I have no doubt there's a strong influence from the CCP in Taiwan's media. I mean, the CCP has an influence worldwide in various medias. So it's almost unimaginable that it wouldn't have its stake in Taiwan's media as well. And my understanding of the situation in Taiwan, it's kind of a cultural thing that their political reporting commentary it's got often quite a combative nature to it. So maybe this is something I guess the audience appreciates as well, where you have one side getting hotly antagonistic towards the other one, and you have the side that is anti-CCP, and you have the other side that wants a closer relationship with China, as they put it. And the CCP, no doubt, has its influence in many commentators who are pushing for that relationship.
Based on just anecdotal stuff, like just the people that you come across, because in your case, when you mentioned it, there was a family and the kids like, can we hitch a ride with the Americans on the way back to the United States? Have you felt that the generation, let's say the 20s and the 30s, are the ones that don't feel the threat from Taiwan, and it's probably, from CCP, and it's the more senior that are probably more concerned, or vice versa? I ask because it's like almost like the reaction of South Korea, how much a generation that didn't live those threats and concerns of North Korea, and I was like, North Korea is all talk, it's all talk, and they don't take it as seriously. I sometimes wonder if that might be the same for the generation in Taiwan, because everyone's saying that that CCP's threats are exaggerated, are my age or younger, and that's that's my general sentiment that from what I come across, and in your day to day while you've been out there, even recently, have you felt that the concerns come more from the older generation, or is the new generation expressing just as much?
I don't know if I could divide it in that way. I mean, I've known young people who are adamantly opposed to the CCP, young Taiwanese people, and I think you could look at the protest movement in Hong Kong as a reference. I mean, that was a youth-driven movement, and I think that it's something in the youthful spirit internationally that you see obvious restrictions on people's freedoms, and you want to do something about it. You don't want to, if you've lived these young Taiwanese, they've grown up in democracy. Democracy is relatively new to Taiwan, but the people in their 20s and 30s, they've basically grown up with that, and they can see the potential for that to be decimated if the CCP is to move in on Taiwan.
And you mentioned something about democracy being new enough to Taiwan. But I love this highlighted piece that you did when you did a 2-part series about the defense of Taiwan, and in comparison as to what's going on between that and Ukraine. Taiwan has predated the CCP. I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. And it's so easy to forget that. It's like, huh. And the younger generation never had to grow up with that, which is why I always feel, and I teach my children history, because they have to learn history. If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. So my wife asked me, well, the reason they don't feel the threats from the CCP is because, well, besides the whole, planes maybe threatening Taiwanese airspace, they haven't done anything to Taiwan. I said, well, that's because they're not interested in blowing up the island. They want to subjugate the people. And besides, the resources that Taiwan has, particularly in the semiconductor business, is what they want. And the only thing, a natural barrier for them, kind of like how Great Britain survived all those world wars without being invaded, is the Taiwan Strait. I've heard some analysis about the possibility, if there is a land invasion, why it can't just be at the whim for China. It has to be around these 2 opportunities seasonally, and that's just too much for them. And if it's one of your pieces too that I saw on the wide angle, where it said, yeah, but if Taiwan remains standing and the CCP doesn't get a hold of them, that they could very much see a collapse of the CCP back on China, for which is why this is such a strategic thing for them. It's like, that's a piece of the puzzle I never actually saw. And I think that's the only thing right now that people don't realize unless they analyze it very well. But overall, I just think that Taiwan needs to, they do need to take this more seriously, and they, at the very least, their military budget that I don't know anything about, how much they spend, they got triple, double, whatever it is, and take it seriously. So that's been my take on all this. But I was curious if you were on assignment out there, or for pleasure, or both. If you came across a lot of this, particularly as of late, because it looks like China's been a lot more aggressive these past few days, and some people don't even know about it.
I can't say personally that I've seen any specific signals of that, but during a trip out to Hualien, one of Taiwan's very beautiful tourist locations on the seaside, I saw a jet flew overhead. It was probably a Taiwanese jet, but it just occurred to me, this is the kind of lifestyle, this is the kind of situation that the Taiwanese people are living in, where if you see that, if you hear that, you're naturally going to wonder, is this one of ours, or is this a CCP jet that's invading our airspace once again? And what is the signal for the next escalation in this tension?
Yeah, because I have a buddy of mine who did marry Taiwanese. He moved to Taiwan, and we're talking recently. It's like, are you considering moving back? Because he's out here in Southern California too. He's like, no. If anything, he was encouraging me to move to Taiwan. I'm like, really? You guys really don't feel it? And it's like, what can you do? Like,
Well, I mean, I've been here for a month this time around, and I don't feel in a hurry to leave. It's interesting. I mean, Taiwan, it doesn't have a lot of the trademark tourist attractions. It doesn't have, the inspiring architecture of places like France or even New York. But it's very comfortable here, and you get, for one, I mean, you get fantastic service. The people really, if you go to a restaurant, if you stay at a hotel, you get exceptional service. People really seem to care about making sure you have the best experience. And I think, I mean, that's a testament to the kind of the mentality of that widely pervades Taiwanese society. It's because they've had to be very resilient because they've faced this ongoing threat, and it was 2 million people having to flee recently communist occupied China to make a new life on this island. It's that culture of determination, of hard work. It's instilled very much from what I see in Taiwanese culture, and I think that's probably one of their greatest assets in facing the threat that they continue to face.
There's this whole culture about eating and drinking. That's why it's like, it's the heart of Asia. It's the Formosa Island. And it's just a place that you're a foodie. It's where you want to be. And it's just so comforting. And I think that's, like you said, the culture, the service that you get. It's, unless you're there, it's really hard for people to really experience it, because there's a lot of Taiwanese places here where I am. It's like, yeah, but it's not the same. And it's, to me, it's something worth preserving. People do need to experience it. I just wish, even though they're resilient, I believe a lot of that resilience of the people recently has been because they felt the cover of the United States. Like, I think it was Bill Clinton's, under Bill Clinton's presidency, that we had a little bit of war games over there to defend Taiwan. But other than that, I haven't heard of anything more massive than that kind of response to defend Taiwan. And the threats are even worse now. So that's how I've come across in my short experiences with that. And a lot of what you said has kind of tied into both on the wide angle and both as a just a passerby and a tourist. That I think people are waking up a little more. But I guess we shall soon see, because the government's the one that needs to really react to all this.
I was recently reading an article from the Japanese Japan Times. It was an interview with a former Taiwanese admiral, Lee Se-min, and he was saying that really Taiwan is not prepared at this point in time militarily at any stretch of the imagination to fend off a CCP attack. And the reality is that it is very much how much of a stake America and the Western world signals that it has in Taiwan. How much, like the recent G7, it was a kind of a mixed message again from America and from the G7 in terms of where it stands with Taiwan. I'll give you an example.
Sure.
There's a clear consensus among our allies, this is from Biden, that there will be a response if China unilaterally takes action. So they're talking about it's a clear response. It's a clear consensus, but the idea of a response is somewhat vague. What kind of response can we expect? And this is what we come to expect from the Biden administration, where Biden will say, if there is an attack from the CCP, we will take action. Then a few days later, you see the White House comes back and kind of retracts the statement. But I mean, I think at the same time that does serve some purpose. I mean, I don't think it's a faux pas on Biden's part. I think it's probably a strategic move by the Biden administration, because they don't want to send a clear message. And you could say that this strategic ambiguity policy has worked for decades. There hasn't been a war, so it's understandable to some degree why they continue in that manner. This is important. I mean, it is significant, and there's the signaling of the world, the signaling of America is crucial. You can't get away from the fact in Taiwan's security at this point in time.
Yeah, I just think that, as I told my wife yesterday, I just feel that Taiwan, if they took an approach similar to Israel, where we have two nations that are literally dependent on us, but where you have Israel that's like, hey, everybody needs to get trained here because you never know. We're going to call a man or woman, doesn't matter. You hold up a rifle, we're going to train you. I feel that the same at the very least in Taiwan. I saw some videos and I re-went through them recently. I'm like, is that really soldiers training with airsoft in Taiwan? I wanted to believe the video was fake, and supposedly it was real. Like, can they not afford, or is it they just so anti-gun that they wouldn't use guns to train even with real guns, or they just couldn't afford the weapons and the ammunition that they're trying to preserve? Those answers were not provided. But that's what I mean. These are a little bit older videos. Like Taiwan, they at the very least they're used like, yo, you guys gotta be ready. You guys need to invest in your budgets. Expect urban warfare, because Taiwan, if China really wanted to, they would have blown it up a long time ago. That's not what they want. They wouldn't do that. So expect some kind of land war that they're not able to win. We don't know, but it doesn't hurt to be prepared. So there's been more in mind. Like you need air defenses, you need your Air Force, and you need your soldiers trained, man, woman. You guys all need to do your part. So that's been my thing. If they have taken a more Israeli model with that in that sense, I think it'll work out. Not so much an Iron Dome because they wouldn't need it per se, but hey, if you can, why not? So that's really been my thing with all that. And I think I can't remember his name. You had Dr. Su Yun. I'm not good with pronunciation of names.
Pretty close.
He actually did say that on your show when you interviewed him along those lines. Like, hey, that's what I was saying. So I thought that was last year. So I'm glad that I'm trying to tell my family very things that people very much over there and involved in strategic decisions at least have that in mind. I'm just hoping that they at least allocate the budget for it and at least have done so a lot more so than the past year. But the next election apparently it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm not going to ask you about that one, but we'll see where that goes. I'll let you have a last word in, but I didn't want to keep any longer because for you it's midnight.
Yeah, I mean, along the lines of what you're saying, Taiwan has invested in that kind of like anti-air, anti-ship missile technology more off late. The extent to which that puts Taiwan escalates its ability to really defend itself. There's different opinions on that. I think largely it's the positioning of the U.S. and the global community that Taiwan is dependent on at this stage. I agree. It does need to foster that mentality of really, particularly getting its youth in that kind of prepare for war mentality. And I mean, just visiting a hospital here, you have all these military hospitals because there was such a large military in Taiwan before. Now, these military hospitals are basically servicing civilians because there just isn't that population of military to service. But another factor is that China may not present the formidable threat that it would like the world to believe. I mean, China is facing a number of problems of its own that it's probably beyond the scope of our conversation today, but it major economic problems. Goldman Sachs recently rated it as an estimate of China's debt at $1.23 trillion. We've seen unprecedented protests internally in China with their zero COVID policy. We've got teachers protesting in China recently because they're not getting paid. It's teachers who haven't been paid for 4 years, which is also pointing to a probably heavily concealed economic problem there in China. Is China really, really ready? Is it economically ready? Does it have the cohesion socially to really really wage war at this point. And that's another important consideration, I think. And I think there's many factors suggesting it's not.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. There's the economy over there has definitely been concealed, and that's something we can unpack and spend so much time on. But of course, we can't. So I don't want to keep it any longer because it is midnight. I'm just getting my day started. You're done with yours.
Well, it's been a great way to end, to be honest.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And for those that don't know, Brendon used to do the wide angle over at the Epoch Times, but he's now focused on health. And I'm going to ask him privately if he is doing a health segment on Taiwanese food over there. So we'll talk about that another time. Hey, but hey, thanks so much. Keep doing what you do, man. And Godspeed. Have safe travel when you come back to the States.
Okay. Great to be on. Speak to you soon, Andres. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you then.